Hello out there, e-gathering folks. Welcome to the conversation. Hey, I'm Todd Brown. This here is Rick Coop.
Yep.
And every week we get together and we talk about matters of our faith, part of our life, things going on. And this week we're talking about one that I think may be a little tough for some people. If they just, maybe you won't even start it. But we're going to talk about this idea of fearing God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I conjecture that it's just very hard for us as 21st century humans to have anything that makes us feel like we're supposed to be scared of it. Except
Which is funny to me that you say that, because the other side of that same coin is it seems like people fear everything today.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're right in that it seems like, you know, I'm not afraid of it, you know, and we're not supposed to be afraid of it, and we can explain everything away.
Yeah.
And yet, on the other hand, it just seems like there's a lot of fear going on.
We get crippled by it.
Yeah,
I can't
that's
go do
going
that,
on in this society, you know. And Mary and I just had this conversation not too long ago, in that it may be a little bit, but it seems like in the news media, it's constantly fear. COVID's this, and it's better than, it's stronger than it was before. They found this new brain-eating worm, and they've got the flu is supposed to be worse than anything, and then RSV is coming back stronger than it ever was, and now they've got this flesh-eating thing, you know, that's a bacteria.
These Mexican immigrants are going to come and destroy the country.
Yeah,
you can't possibly deal with all these people.
And they're taking away this, and they're taking away that, and interest rates are going to go up, and they're projected to be the highest. Yeah. And global warming, it's just constant fear that happens in social media and in the news media. It's non-stop.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, I'm not afraid of anything. On the other hand, everything's out to get me. Yeah. What am I going to do?
Jesus puts it this way at one point. He says, why are you worried about something that can kill your body when you should need to be concerned with something that can kill your body and your soul?
Yeah.
So we worry about all that other stuff, and yet if somebody brings up God, we're like, I don't even believe that. I don't even believe in that. Or we get hippie guru Jesus that says you don't have to fear God because he's just this loving Father who has no consequence, no matter what you do. It's all sweet and loveness and light.
You know, something that a saying that gets me time and time again, and maybe this is what will lead us into the topic today, but I have heard people say, well, when I get to heaven, God and I have got some talking to do.
Oh, yeah, you're just going to take me to the woodshed, aren't you?
I've got a few questions for him, you know. Careful. Walk lightly here.
Yeah, so, careful. But you see, even when you say careful, people are like, what do I have to be careful of? He's a loving God, and if he can't put up with my questions, then what
kind of a God is he then?
Yeah,
that gets me when people do that.
Well, the other piece is there's no place in the Bible that it says that we have to be afraid of God. And I want to go, wait a minute. There are more than 300 times in the Bible that it says fear God or fear the Lord.
Yes.
I'm going to argue there isn't anything else in the Bible that happens that repeatedly. Nothing else. So if you were just going to keep count and say that's the most important thing, fear God, fear God, fear God. And I have a little video that I did a while back that is just these repeats of the number of scriptures. And so I'm hopefully what you guys are seeing right now along the bottom of your screen is just a whole bunch of these coming at you over and over and over and over and over and over. the core piece is the thing that gets said a lot in different ways is the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. It isn't everything, but it's like the starting point.
Yeah.
So for beginners, what I will tell people a lot of times is if I have conversations with somebody who is an atheist or somebody who just or is agnostic and doesn't really believe in God, or even if doesn't believe at all in God.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say the first step in becoming a Christian or in Christianity as a whole, step one is just to believe in God. Mm-hmm. You don't have to call him the Great Spirit. You don't have to call him Allah. You don't have to call him Yahweh. You don't have to call them Father God. Step one, as Johnny Cash puts it, and I came to believe in a power much higher than I, which I didn't know is part of the 12-step program. When we talk about when we talk about the 12-step programs to get away from addiction or breaking addiction, I would argue the first. So it is one of this. It's one of the steps to me. To me, it's step one. Is to come to believe in a power much higher than you.
Yeah.
So when we talk about fearing God, well, that's kind of what that amounts to. Is this is something higher than me? That's step one. Is I believe that there is something higher than me. Now we can slap a name on it as we go along, but you need to recognize.
What does that fear? What does the term fear mean to you in this circumstance?
Well, that's the whole conversation.
I
isn't
know.
It? That's the whole conversation.
Because I think it has some meanings that we talk about today, as far as like respect and reverence, and I wrote that all for His justice and mercy, surrender, amazement in who He is. Admiration, but Todd, I'm gonna say that it means just one thing more, and that is have a little fear and trembling.
It's hard to bring up the father-child relationship without having all of the psychological and current broken father perceptions that go with that.
Yes, sir. Yep.
One of the hardest things for us as 21st century people is to say, to fear your father. Because fearing your father, well, then what's wrong with him? What did he do? He must have abused you.
Yeah.
There must be a problem. But fearing your father doesn't mean that you think he's going to kill you, even though we joke about that. But it does mean some of the things you were going through. I know my dad, and you may not. But from a God perspective, this Father God, you know your God well enough to know that when you go to Him with something you've done wrong, you would rather not do something wrong than have to go to Him and tell Him you did something. You may fear, or if you try to avoid Him, step one is to recognize the power of this being, and to recognize that He knows. Anyway, so fear actually means being afraid of the consequence of
I like
stepping
what you said there, though.
of,
recognize the power.
Yeah.
That. Man, you're pretty good. That was all right.
So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of recognizing the power.
Okay.
Isaiah 6:5. So there are two moments that we see when human beings, and I know there are others, but there are two moments when we recognize human beings in the presence of God that speak to this. And there are two more. There's another one, but I'm going to go with these simple, quick ones. Isaiah 6:5. the prophet Isaiah finds himself in the presence of God.
Yeah.
And his reaction isn't, this is awesome, I got some stuff I want to bring up with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, we're going to talk.
We're going to talk. What's up with this thing?
Yeah.
His response is, so I said, woe is me. Now this is the prophet Isaiah, the chosen one of God, who has been set apart to speak for God. His immediate reaction when he finds himself in the presence of God is, woe is me, for I am undone. Now I choose the King James because I love that expression. I am undone.
Yeah.
There was a commercial. There was a cartoon when we were kids when it's the Roadrunner and and Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
And there's a moment when Wile E. Coyote is broken, undone. When you watch all his parts fall off separately into a little pile.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, this is the image I get, right?
Kids today are missing the great.
Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips.
Yep.
For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts.
Yeah.
In the presence of Father God, in that moment, you recognize what's broke about you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's times when I say things I shouldn't say. Anyway, and it becomes glaringly clear in the presence of the Holy One.
Yes.
The other one is John in the Revelation.
Yes.
John finds himself in the presence of God.
Yeah.
And his answer, and he says kind of the same thing. He says, when I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead.
Yeah.
This is not a healthy respect. So you can be all this and that about, well, when it says fear God, what it really means is to respect him. Yeah, okay, but you didn't come undone. The seams of you did not break apart and fall to the ground.
I can have the utmost respect for somebody, and I'm not going to fall dead.
I'm not going to fall dead. I'm not going to go like...
Yeah.
But you know that feeling.
Yeah.
You know that feeling of, oh no. I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. I'm ready to talk about when the roll is called up yonder. Yeah. You're going to get there when the roll is called up yonder, and you're going to be like, uh-oh, here we go. Remember that time that I did the thing? I'm going to be in that presence, right?
I'm looking up something.
Well,
here.
The other two are Exodus, and it's the moment when the people of Israel have gone from slavery in Egypt, and they have made it out to the presence of God at Mount Sinai, and here we stand. And it says, on the morning of the third day, this is Exodus 19, on the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning and a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast, and everyone in the camp trembled. These people, this is just respect, Rick. They're trembling out of respect.
Right.
Yeah. Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. And the smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. Fast forward 2018. When the people saw the thunder and the lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear, and they stayed at a distance and said to Moses, speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die.
Yeah. You were talking about being undone.
Yeah.
Just a little bit ago. And the couple of scriptures that hit me was in Genesis 17, after the fall, Adam and Eve hear God walking in the garden. Yeah. And they hide from him. Yeah. And Adam, he could not face God because he knew that he was broken, undone. Another one is when Jesus is with Peter, Simon Peter, and Peter says, away from
Get away from me.
I'm a sinner.
Yeah, get away from me.
He realizes at that moment when he's in the presence of God that I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I don't have any right to be here in this presence. And that to me goes beyond respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes to a point of, I know who he is, I recognize his power, his authority, and I know who I am. And this is going to be a bit flippant, I guess, but I can't hold a candle to that.
Yeah, I've come undone.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I've come undone.
It's a great picture.
But then, in all of these cases, I hate to blow the punchline, but in all of these cases, what was God's response?
See, but that's the point to me. Mm-hmm. That is the point. Do not be afraid.
Yeah. What is God's response? And that is, we go back, we just talked about this.
Yeah.
Watch the previous episode. God's response in all of these places, and the response of a powerful father, is I could destroy you if that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you recognize who I am, and you recognize where we are, and you recognize what we're up against, stand up and get your stuff together.
Yeah.
And we're going to roll on. Now, there's going to be consequences in the case of Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
They're freaking out about me and naked. He's like, what's naked got to do with anything? You've been naked ever since I made you, so what are you freaking out about? What is this going on? Yeah. But so we can talk, I'm going to clothe you. It says, and he clothed them in animal skins. Which one? He had to remove the skins from the animals. And then he put clothes on them for a problem they caused and they recognized, and he could care less about.
Yeah.
So his response as a loving father is to make them whole. But then to explain, this is fixing to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
This isn't the ride I had in mind, but this is what we've chosen. And this is a good father. A good father says, honey, I love you. And that we're going to get you cleaned up here. We're going to get I know that evil thing hurt you that you decided to do.
Yeah.
We're going to get you cleaned up and dusted off. And there's going to be consequences to this. But I love you. And we're going to move forward. I made you whole to start with. So in all those cases, Adam and Eve.
Yep.
What happens to... wow, I'm really jumping.
Isaiah,
yeah,
he
what
gets
happened?
the coal is touched to his lips.
God sends one of his cherubim and says, go over there and fix that boy.
You say you're a person of unclean lips here. Let's fix that.
Let's fix the unclean lips thing.
Yeah.
Let's deal with that.
Right.
So I think the problem for us with fear, when we say fear, what's some stuff that people fear? What are things spiders?
Yeah, spiders, snakes, heights.
The dark.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of those versions of fear are fear of things that will hurt us without prejudice.
Yeah.
They say if you see there are a few things in this world, there are not a lot of animals in this world that will attack you without prejudice. Grizzly bears will kill something and walk away from it. Don't care. They'll stop what they're doing and go kill that thing and just walk away. They say a polar bear, if you see a polar bear and do your best to avoid it seeing you. Because if it sees you, it will leave what it's doing and come and kill you and go about its business. Okay? So when we think of things that we fear, It's fear of things that will hurt us. And so for us, 21st century people, fear doesn't mean fear of being present in the presence of something holy that exposes our unholiness and our brokenness. That's because of the consequence that will come. Mm-hmm. It's now consequence time. Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. Honey, I love you and I'm going to make you whole, but it's consequence time. It's not that kind of fear. We're afraid of something that's dark and hurtful. Mm-hmm. Spiders, grizzly bears, darkness.
Yeah. Things that will cause us pain. But I think it's interesting when you were saying that, and I've brought this up before, but to me it was impactful in my life. And we've talked about the whole conversation that Lucy has with the beaver, Mr. Beaver. And
Rick, you're going to have to give that. You're going to have to give that context. Who's Lucy, and why is she talking to a beaver?
Okay, so in the book, The Chronicles of Narnia,
here we go.
there is this character in the book, Aslan, who's a lion.
It's like the Monty Python thing. You and me get it, but
yeah. And Aslan is the in the book is the symbol of God. He's the how do I put this? I don't mean this flippantly, but he's the God character.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is the Jesus representation.
Yeah. And Lucy, a little girl in the book, says, "Is he safe?" And she's talking to their animals who can talk and communicate in this book. Yep. And this character named Mr. Beaver says, "Safe? Who said anything about safe?"
Yeah.
He of course he isn't safe, but he's good.
Yeah.
He's the king, I tell you. And Mr. Toomas, who's another character in the book, says he's wild, you know. He's not a tame lion.
Yeah.
And to me, that's such a wonderful picture of, is God safe? No, not all the time. He challenges you.
No.
He brings you into places you're not going to be comfortable with. Mostly because you're dealing with having to look at you, the real you.
Yeah.
Not
there is consequence.
Yeah.
And he set up the consequence.
Yes.
So.
Like the Adam and Eve thing.
Yeah.
Hey, where are you guys at? Well, we hid because we're naked. Mm-hmm. Well, what caused that? Mm-hmm. I'm a man of unclean lips. Yeah. Well, let's fix that.
Yeah.
You know,
let's get past that. Let's do the thing and get past that. Yeah.
Peter falling down and saying, don't come around. I'm a sinner. Don't even come around. Yeah, well, we're going to deal with that. But he deals with it because he's the king. He loves us.
Yeah.
He loves us enough to deal with it. And I love that little illustration in the Chronicles of Narnia. Should we fear him? Yeah, he's not a tame lion.
The way at one point that I thought of it was, he's not a dog chained in your backyard.
Right.
He's not your dog. You belong to him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't belong to you. Mm-hmm. This isn't your universe. This is his universe. And so much of what we deal with as people, I hear people say, well, I'm a control freak. I want to go, so are we all. Everybody. Yeah. We're all a control. Unless you've been beaten down, and there are people in this world who've been beaten down to the point where they're like, you know what, I don't care, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's fine. But even they worry constantly about what they can control. I've got, again, I have such awesome Christian-y references. The movie The Jerk. I don't need anything, well, except this ashtray. And that lighter and this chair. And, even those who have given up on saying they need something Even the least of us are control freaks to a degree. And God says, you're not in control. I'm in control. God is not a dog that you can keep in the backyard. He's not going to wear your chain and do your bidding.
Yeah.
He is not a tame lion. That's my favorite line in those lines is, he's not a tame lion.
Yeah.
He's not yours to do with as you will. And he's going to do what and you are in his kingdom. And I think that for a 21st century person, that is so flipped on its head. We think that what we're here to do is figure out how to control everything. And God tells us at the beginning, I give you this, go and subdue it. But
you're not going to subdue me.
You're not going to subdue me.
We try to, the word that came to mind for me is domestication. We tried to domesticate everything. So we can own it, so we can control it, and we try to domesticate God.
And we don't want a father that we fear. That's just disgusting.
Yeah.
You need to get counseling if you're scared of if you have fear of your father. And God flips that and it's, well, okay.
Yeah.
When you get over that, when you decide again the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, when you recognize his power, when you recognize who he is and what the consequences are of not doing things his way, that's the beginning of wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's when now we're tracking.
Yeah.
Now we're tracking. Adam and Eve. Now you get where I'm coming from now? Okay, now you got all them smarts, you got all that figured out, right? You ate from the tree of the the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah. You got all them smarts, and now you see the mess you're in. Mm-hmm. Are we tracking? Do you understand now? Yeah.
I think of a situation I had with my dad. I had a older Chrysler car, and Dad said it's leaking oil. Make sure that you keep checking it. You know.
Yeah.
We'll can't find it yet.
Fill the oil, check the gas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, keep an eye on what's going on here. And I didn't. And I didn't. And I didn't. And I was over at a strip mall and started up my car and it seized up. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I didn't. And then once in a while, Dad told me to. I'm going to have to go face Dad. Now, not because Dad was going to beat me, not because he was going to, verbally abuse me to the point, but I had a healthy fear of going to my dad and saying, I messed up, Dad. I mean, I did not know how I was going to explain that to him. And even I walked in the door, Dad was there, and he said, where's your car? And I was hoping we wouldn't have to address this already.
Adam, where are you?
Yeah, and it's, down here, and, well, what happened to it? It started smoking real bad. Did the engine seize up? Yeah, I think so. Did I not tell you? And I can tell you, I was fear and trembling during that point. I knew my dad loved me, but I knew where I was in that moment, and I knew what he had asked me not to do, and told me what to do, and I was undone. And I knew I was standing. I loved my dad, and I felt like I'd let him down, and there was a fear there.
You learn in a healthy relationship of that sort, and in relationship with God, you learn that staying in his will provides safety and comfort and a direction. Mm-hmm. Now, that makes it sound like it's all goodness and light and you'll never have any problems ever and ever again. But it gives you a track. You're
Sure.
on his track.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're moving.
You know the right path.
Yeah, you know the right path. And so no matter what goes wrong, if something goes wrong, you can at least say, hey, I know I'm on the right path. And so this is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
We're going towards good. But when we go off program, when we go off track, then what we've done at that point is we have been exposed to the consequence of what we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And so fear of God and then independence, walking away from that, comes back to this idea of being exposed. You've been left naked. One of the most common nightmares for humans is we wake up and we find ourselves naked at school, at work, at church. And it's the most ridiculous thing. You wouldn't do that. But you went to work in just your underwear. And then you find yourself in that spot. And it all comes back to this idea of being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
We've left the safety of living in God's will and doing what he would have us do, because again, if you follow the path, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. It may not be what you think is the best plan, but it's when we walk outside of his will that we find ourselves exposed to the consequences, exposed to the things that God told us was going to happen anyway. And so we end up in that position of being, we're in the dark at this point, we're hanging out here, and then we know what's coming. Fear of God means that you believe in God well enough, you believe in who God is well enough, that what's coming is you're going to have to expose that to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to help you, but you're going to have to know that you disappointed him, that you hurt him, that now you're going to have to deal with the consequence in that other way.
I like how Scripture tells us that God often says, "Fear not." Don't. We're going to deal with this. This just like my dad. Hey, we're going to we'll look for another engine. Now he was upset with me.
Yep.
Not happy that I didn't do what he asked to do. But he said, we'll find another engine. I'll help you find another engine, and we'll put it in, but you're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying this engine. I bought the car. I'm not buying this engine. You will pay for it. That was my consequence in that.
Absolutely.
Dad who cared, dad who wanted to, and we found an engine, we put it in, blah, blah, blah. But I paid for it because it was my irresponsibility that, toward.
You're going to have a consequence.
And the consequence a lot of times with God is that he'll walk with you through it. You'll deal with it together, but you screwed up here. There's a consequence to this.
Yes.
And it happens. I mean, even when Simon Peter met Jesus, there was a consequence there because Simon knew who he was and what had happened. But Jesus said, "Okay, it's all right. We'll walk it together," which changed his life. Yeah. Good stuff there.
So, walking through what you walked through with the engine thing, walking through what we see with Adam and Eve, walking through Isaiah and John and Peter and these guys going through, I think when we talk about fearing God, I think what we're talking about is actually, it's kind of, he might consider it cute. In a weird way, what we are fearing God is not fearing, in the long run, it's not fearing that he, to quote Bruce Almighty, is going to smite you where you stand. Because fear of that kind is an ignorance of God. You don't really, you haven't met this guy.
Yeah.
You don't know Jesus. If you, what your fear is that he's going to smite you where you stand. Even the atheists who think of him as the great sky bully haven't really read even the Old Testament, where the mighty smiter is, because in each of those times, about the worst that God, there's like one or two examples where I can think of that people interpreted what happened as God actually directly smiting people. There are very few examples of that. Generally what happens is God gets tired of you deciding that you're going to take your own path, and he removes his protection from you. He takes his hand from you. It's like the people of Israel. At some point he goes, look guys, this is the way y'all want to do it. He literally says to the prophets who go to them, tell them, I am about to remove my hand from you. And you're going to get your butt whooped. And it's going to be, and he calls it shot. It's going to be that guy and that guy. And they're going to whoop you and make you slaves and run over you. It's almost always that thing. It's almost always that thing. He tells them again and again, this is the way that leads to life. And if that's what if you choose to not do it, I'm going to come clean up your mess a few times, but at some point I'm just going to let you go. And that's Dad. I mean, that's this healthy relationship with a father. Rick, I told you to add oil to that engine. I gave you a car, but you're going to have to take care of it. I gave you an earth, but you're going to have to take care of it. Yeah. And if you don't take care of it the way that I laid out for you to take care of it, you're gonna have to buy a new engine. It's you, buddy. I love you. Take you where we get a new engine from. I'm gonna work it out so you can get that taken care of today. But you're gonna have to take care of this now. This is your mess. So often what we deal with, is really we're afraid of offending him, of hurting him. We know who he is. If you know him, your fear of him is. If you don't know God, if you don't fear God, you don't care about hurting God. You're going to do your thing. You don't care. Yeah. So if you don't care, then you don't get the initial bump of, buddy, I'm going to help you take care of this. This is how we take care of this. But you're afraid of hurting him if you know him. If we're outside of doing things his way, we also recognize with experience that what we've done is exposed ourselves to harm.
I wonder if the atheist who, or any person who believes that God is nothing more than a smiter, if they're a parent, I wonder if they've never corrected their child on anything, because the child's viewpoint could be, they're always telling me what to do. They're always doing this. Especially if that child's a teenager. My parents are the stupidest thing that ever occurred on their earth. But so instead of that atheist always seeing God as the mighty smiter, maybe they need to understand that you even correct your children. I would hope you would.
Well, here's the toughie, Rick. Nowadays, because of the way we flip things on its head, we want to be our kid's friend.
Yeah, not a parent.
Buddy, what do you want? Yeah. What do you want? There's a comedian, John Christ, who talks about his sister actually getting on the floor at a restaurant where her child was having a fit, getting on the floor with him and going, "We love you. We want to help you. How can we help you with this thing that you're going through at this moment? I'm sorry that you're having this, that we've put you in this situation where you feel like you have to throw a fit on the floor. How can we help you?" They have, he doesn't say this, but they have zero respect for you at this point. And Chris says, he says, call me. I'll come spank your kid. We need to get them
I watched
up
it
off the floor
happen.
and sit your behind down, buddy.
I was at a department store, and there was a father there he had a baby and on his chest, two young boys. And the young boys were taking the clothes and throwing them off the rack and hitting each other with the hangers and just all kinds of stuff, running into things, arguing with each other. And the father, "You're upsetting me. Now, boys, you're upsetting me. Boys, you need to stop. This is very disruptive behavior. I'm really getting upset now."
Yeah.
And like it went on for 20 minutes. And I wanted to say, there's a way to handle this.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it. They don't care. They didn't even look at him. They didn't pay any attention to him whatsoever. And it's kind of like us, we're going to get by with it for a while. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be consequences.
And I'm not even saying, by the way, I'm not saying you have to spank your kid.
Yeah.
It's fine if that's the way you've chosen to do that. But there does have to be a consequence.
There needs to be a consequence.
There has to be a consequence. I looked at my daughter when she was 4 or 5, and she was having a fit about something at the store. And I said, "Hey, that's not the way we're going to do it. Mom's got some stuff she's got to get done, and we got to get through here." And she just kept on about it. And I said, "We're going to the car." "No!" "Oh, yeah, we're going to the car." "No, we can't." And there are those who, would, because she was throwing such a fit, would have thought, well, that's not fair to take her to the car. She realized her mistake. No. We said A plus B equals C. Mm-hmm. If A plus B equals 11, then that's not. There has to be the consequence.
Yeah.
And I didn't take her to the car and beat her or whatever. We just went to the car. Which meant she didn't get to participate in the thing that was going on, and she didn't get the thing she wanted.
Yeah.
That's all the consequence. The consequence was we just sat in the car. So next time Dad said, "Hey, we got to do this thing. This is what we're doing." Then the fear wasn't that I'm going to do something awful. The fear is that you have to deal with the disappointment and the shame of that moment. The fear is the consequence. The fear is of the consequence. And when Dad lets you have the consequence of the thing, right? And to know, but also that fear comes along. What comes along with that fear is also, as you grow in maturity, to know that when Dad says, when Father God says, "This is what we're going to do, buddy," to feel good about it. There comes a point when you don't fear Him, because you know when you follow His way that it's going to be good. Mm-hmm. It drops. The fear drops. When we come to that point. Francis Chan, we both watched Francis Chan do something about the fear of God, and he puts it this way. He says, God is saying to us, I am this amazing God that you ought to fear, but once you get that point, you don't have to fear.
Don't have to fear. Yeah.
Once you and to me that's a simple way of saying what I just said. That is, once you recognize that if you will follow His precepts, if you will follow His way of doing things, then you can be in what would be a scary situation. Mm-hmm. You can be sitting and talking to that person that you don't know if they're really okay or they might hurt you. But God said you need to be in that. You need to be at the mission, talking to that guy who's got the mental issues. You need to be sitting and talking to those people, or feeding those hungry people, or visiting those people in the hospital where you might get disease. When you know that God's got your bets covered, you're just going to go do His thing and not fear Him. It's then that when you do something opposite of what He has in mind, that the consequence is what you fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely agree.
Yep. I'll leave it at, you already talked about this. We already talked about that. the way that God handled Isaiah's fear.
If you have, and this plays into it for me, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yep.
If you have that fear of God in the way that we explained it, not the fear of, mighty smiter thing, but the fear of knowing who He is, understanding His power, understanding who He is, then you don't have to be afraid of other things. He's going to be there. He's going to walk with you through it.
Proverbs 19:23 says, "The fear of God leads to life.
Yes.
Then one rests content, untouchable by trouble."
Yeah.
And that's the idea.
Yeah.
And the question is, do you fear not getting the extra $2,000 on your tax return because you didn't check the checkbox that everybody checks and nobody worries about it and nobody audits, but doesn't really count for you? Do you fear not checking that checkbox and having a financial consequence, or do you fear God because you lied and the consequence of that? Do you recognize who God is enough to know that when you check that checkbox, you've left Him? You ate the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You did your own thing. Do you fear losing that $2,000, or do you fear God? Do you fear being with people that don't know God and doing things and being influenced by them and moving through that world, or do you fear God? Do you fear death, or do you fear God? As Jesus puts it, don't be afraid of the person who can hurt your body. Be afraid of the one who can hurt your body and your soul.
Yeah.
Which one do you fear more? And that's how we walk, right?
Yeah. I like it.
Okay. So, you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Anything else jump to mind? All right. Guys, thank you for joining us. This is a topic that for some reason seems like it's controversial. To me, doesn't seem controversial at all, but I think it's because we 21st century people don't really have a frame for it in our brain. We'd love to hear what you think. Would you please comment? Just make a comment about the topic. We get comments mostly that don't have anything to do with the topic and are kind of weird. Welcome to social media. So we want to hear from you if you've been paying attention. If you're still with us, that means, hey, at least you participated in the conversation and we're available for it. And we'd love to get a like if you liked it. Don't like it if you didn't like it. A subscribe or a follow, depending on your source. But guys, thank you for sticking with us for this time. Have a great day.
Take care.